You know, folks, I've had some strange nights on this show. I've had guests show up late, guests show up early, guests show up who weren't even invited. But what I'm about to tell you, this one tops everything. So picture this. It's Tuesday, December 15th, 1982. We're doing The Tonight Show like we always do. Everything is running smooth. Too smooth. Which in television usually means something is about to go wrong. I'm sitting here doing my monologue, talking about President Reagan's economic policies, holiday shopping, all the usual December madness. The audience is laughing right on cue. 300 people in here thinking, ah, yes, another nice normal night with Johnny Carson. And across America, about 25 million people are sitting at home thinking the same thing. Everything is fine. And then, right in the middle of a Christmas shopping joke, the red phone rings. Now you've got to understand something about that red phone. It's been sitting on my desk for years. It's a prop, a gag. It's supposed to represent some important presidential hotline joke we use sometimes. It is not supposed to ring, ever. But on this night, it starts ringing like it's got something urgent to say to the entire United States of America. And I don't mean a soft little ring. I mean a sharp-cutting, stop everything you're doing kind of ring. The audience goes silent. Ed McMahon looks at me like, I didn't book this. The band stops mid-note. Doc Severinsen literally freezes like someone hit pause on reality. And me? I'm just sitting there staring at this phone thinking, either I've finally lost my mind, or television has decided to become unpredictable for the first time in 30 years. Because this isn't in the script. Fred de Cordova, our director, is behind the cameras waving his arms like he's trying to land airplanes. Nobody knows what's happening. The phone keeps ringing, and now I've got a decision to make. So I do what any responsible television host would do. I pick it up. I say, hello, this is The Tonight Show. And then I hear a voice, a very familiar voice, a voice that does not belong on national television. Johnny, is that really you? And I just freeze. Because suddenly I recognize it. And I don't recognize it in a celebrity guest way. I recognize it in a this is my mother way. My mother, Dorothy Carson, 78 years old, calling from Nebraska. And I go, Mom? And my voice cracks. Right there. Live. On air. No safety net. Mom, what are you doing calling the show? How did you even get this number? And she just laughs. You know that kind of laugh only mothers have. The kind that says, I have already made decisions and none of them involve your approval. She says, well, Johnny, I called NBC and told them it was an emergency. And they connected me. And I'm looking at the audience like, did anyone else just hear that? Because now, 300 people in this studio realize something very important. This is not a bit. This is not a sketch. This is Johnny Carson's actual mother on live television. And I'm sitting there thinking, you can't just call NBC and demand to be put through to The Tonight Show. And she says, oh, honey, don't worry about how it works, which is what every mother says right before doing something completely impossible. Now, at this point, I've got choices. I could shut it down. I could go to commercial. I could pretend this never happened. But instead, I do something I don't normally do on this show. I lean into it, and I say, all right, Mom, since you've got about 25 million people listening, what do you want to tell me? And that's when everything changes, because she doesn't hesitate, not even a second. She just starts talking like she's in her kitchen in Nebraska, not in front of the entire United States. She says she and my father watched the show last week, the one where I talked about growing up in Nebraska. And she says, we're proud of you. Now, I've heard that from my mother before, a lot. But this time, it feels different, because I can hear something underneath it, something like urgency. And I try to joke it off. I say, Mom, you tell me that all the time. But she doesn't let it go. She says, I know I do. But I wanted everyone to hear it. Not Johnny Carson the entertainer, Johnny Carson the person. And suddenly I realize where this is going. And I don't like where it's going. So I say, Mom, America doesn't need to hear about my personal life. And she answers me with the kind of calm authority only mothers have earned through decades of experience. Oh, I think they do. And then she starts talking, and this is where the room changes, because she starts revealing things I never talk about, not on this show, not anywhere, charity work I never mention, children's hospitals I quietly donate to, comedians I helped when they were broke, veterans I visited without press, without cameras, without anyone knowing, and I'm sitting there thinking, "Mom, please stop." But she doesn't stop. She keeps going. She talks about me flying back to Nebraska, visiting Mrs. Henderson after her husband died, sitting in her kitchen for hours just listening. She talks about a boy named Tommy Patterson, sick, and how I paid for his treatment anonymously, and now the audience is dead silent. No laughter, no applause, just listening. And I finally say, quietly, "Mom, why are you telling people this?" And her voice changes, not louder, not dramatic, just serious. And she says, because she had been to the doctor, and the doctor had told her things a son doesn't want to hear. And I just sit there. For the first time in my entire career, I don't have a line, I don't have a joke, I don't have timing. I just ask, what kind of things? And she says, the kind of things that make a mother want to say everything she's been holding back, while she still can. And right there, live on television, everything starts to break open. So now we're not doing a television show anymore. We're doing something else entirely. And I'm just trying to keep my hands steady on this desk like it's suddenly the only solid thing in the world. My mother is still on the phone. Live. Millions of people listening. And she's telling me things I'm not ready to hear. She says the kind of things that make a mother want her son to know how proud she is of him, before it's too late to say it properly. And I'm sitting here thinking, too late for what? But I already know. And I don't want to know. My voice drops. I ask her quietly, "Mom, are you trying to tell me you're sick?" And there's a pause. You know those pauses in life where nobody is laughing anymore, nobody is applauding, nobody is even breathing normally? We had one of those. And she answers me, and she doesn't dodge it. She just says she's trying to tell me she loves me. And I'm still holding onto that phone like it might suddenly turn into a normal conversation again. But it doesn't, because then she says something that hits even deeper. She says when she watches me on TV every night, she doesn't see Johnny Carson the entertainer. She sees the little boy in Nebraska, the one doing puppet shows in the living room just to make her smile when she had hard days. And I don't know what to do with that, because we don't usually talk about that part of life on television. We joke, we laugh, we move on. But this is something else. Now the audience is crying. I can hear it. Not the usual laughter, not applause. Just this quiet, heavy silence that fills a room when everybody suddenly understands they're witnessing something real. Ed McMahon is wiping his eyes. The crew is frozen. And somewhere out there, 25 million people are watching this happen in real time. And I try to speak. I really do. I manage, "I love you too, Mom," and my voice breaks halfway through it. I tell her I'm coming to Nebraska this weekend. I tell her we're going to sit in the kitchen, drink coffee, talk. Just normal things, simple things. The kind of things you suddenly realize you should have done more often. And she says something I'll never forget. She says she'd like that. But right now I've got a show to finish because, in her words, these nice people came to see you be funny, not to watch you cry over your mother. And somehow, she's still taking care of me in the middle of all this. So I pull myself together. Not perfectly, not like nothing happened, but enough. And I turn back to the audience and I say, "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to apologize for that interruption." And I stop for a second because I realize something. There is no way to smooth this out. So I just tell the truth. My mother had something important to tell me, and apparently she decided 25 million people needed to hear it too. And for the first time all night, the audience applauds. Not laughter, not comedy applause. Something different, something softer. Something that says, "We understand this isn't a show anymore." And then I say something I don't plan. I tell them, "If you still have your mother, call her tomorrow. Don't wait. Don't assume there's always time." And the room goes quiet again, but in a different way. Like everyone is thinking of someone. And that night, that episode, it doesn't end like a normal show. It ends like something people remember for the rest of their lives. But what I didn't know then was that this wasn't just a moment for America. It was going to become a memory I would carry forever. Because the next morning, I get the call again. From her, my mother. And she asks me if I was upset, if she embarrassed me. And I tell her no. I tell her it was the most important conversation I ever had on this show. But I also tell her the truth, that I wish it didn't have to happen because she was sick. And she just says something very simple, very practical. She says, we all get sick eventually, like she's talking about the weather. And she says the important thing is she got to tell me what she needed to tell me, while she could still say it clearly. And that's the part that sticks. Not the cameras, not the audience, not the phones ringing, just that idea that sometimes people wait their whole life to say things, and sometimes they don't get enough time to say them properly. You know, after that night, life didn't suddenly become a movie where everything wraps up neatly. It just kept going. My mother lived a little longer after that call, about 2 more years. And during that time, I did something I probably should have done more of all along. I went to see her, not as Johnny Carson, the television host, just as a son. And every time I went back to Nebraska, something strange happened. I didn't just see her. I started seeing everything she had been talking about on that phone call. The neighbors, Mrs. Henderson next door, the quiet little lives I had touched without ever thinking of it as anything important. I'd stop by her house, sit in the kitchen, drink coffee, listen to stories about her husband Harold, just ordinary human moments, the kind that suddenly feel very big when you realize how fragile time actually is. And then in 1984, my mother passed away, and I did something I don't usually do. I took time off. I'm 2 full weeks away from The Tonight Show, the first real break I had taken in more than a decade. And when I came back, I didn't come back with jokes right away. I came back with something else, a monologue for her. And I said something that I still think about even now. I said, she taught me that making people laugh is a gift, but making people feel loved is a responsibility. And I meant it. Because that night, that phone call, it didn't just change me. It changed the way I looked at everything I'd been doing for 30 years. That red phone on my desk, the one she somehow got through on that night, I never used it again the same way. I had it removed from the set, moved it into my dressing room, not as a prop anymore, just as a reminder of a voice from Nebraska that cut through all the noise of television and reminded me what actually matters. And over the years, people would ask me what moment I remember most from The Tonight Show. I did thousands of them. Guests, jokes, sketches, chaos, all of it. But I never had to think about the answer, because it was always the same. That phone call, because I spent 30 years trying to get the timing right on television. The perfect pause, the perfect joke, the perfect reaction. But my mother, she had the perfect timing. She somehow knew the exact moment when the world needed to stop being a show and start being real. And here's the truth about that night. It wasn't really about television. It wasn't about ratings or broadcasts or live audiences. It was about something much simpler. A son and a mother saying things they should have said sooner, while there was still time to say them at all. That's what people remember when they talk about that moment. Not the red phone, not the studio, not even the show. They remember the feeling, because for a few minutes in 1982, the barrier between the screen and real life disappeared. And all that was left was 2 people who loved each other, finally saying it out loud. And if there's anything I learned from all of it, it's this. You don't wait for the perfect moment to tell someone you love them, because sometimes the perfect moment shows up unexpectedly, like a phone ringing in the middle of a joke. And when it does, you pick it up and you say hello.